In 3, 2, 1. What is up, Whitpain Tavern? All right.
Here we go.
Turn the third mic on for the Whitpain Tavern. Let's try that again. What is up, Whitpain Tavern?
Oh,
wow,
gosh.
just buzzed our ears.
Wow. That's an old rock star move. Good work, Jack.
Yeah.
Get the crowd into it early.
That's what we try to do. A very special From the Hill podcast. Prophet making his triumphant return.
It's been a couple weeks. Thanks for having me back, Jack.
It's been like a month, bro.
It's been a really long time. July and August is a very busy time for us. We have a lot of birthdays in July and August that kind of like tie up the weekends and softball tournaments, of
I was
course.
going to say, why don't you tell everybody why you really
Exactly.
playing softball?
A lot of softball tournaments, but I can't get into too much softball yet. Maybe in a little bit. I'm going to hold that for Jared. Maybe Jared wants to get into that a little bit. But we do want to thank you guys for coming out to the Whitpain Tavern here. I really appreciate it. It's kind of we're kind of getting into this podcast schedule that we're doing live, and you know,
That's right. That's right.
but-
There's a lot more to come on the live shows here, especially coming into football season. But as Nick said, we appreciate everybody coming out. So just so you see here, you guys are looking at us, there's a third microphone here in front of you. So if you want to come up and give us a hard time or you want to have some sports conversations, not yet, Jared, just, let us know, and you can come on up and we'll talk about whatever you want to. You can get yourself on the show.
if you have questions for the Prophet or Swags,
That's
please
right.
direct it at one or the other, or both.
Well, we're both. We're both.
So how do we want to get this thing started, Jack? We have a lot of things to get into, some baseball, some football, but first we want to start out with some movies. So I know that you're a big movie guy. You talk a lot of movies, and we always get into this back and forth. We talked about military a few weeks ago, different military movies. First thing I'm going to ask you about the movies thing is, when do you get into your movie? So I have like almost a dedicated movie night where I watch it. And it's usually Friday night where I don't want to go out. I have to stay home and like hang out. You watch, you hang out with the dog after a long week of work, and you order a pizza and you watch movies. Is that what you do?
No.
Can I guess how you watch him?
You can guess.
He's not, but I'm gonna guess.
You can
I'm gonna guess how he watches his movies. Okay.
You guess how I watch my movies.
This is what I think. This is how Jack sees all his movies, because he does watch a lot of movies and talks a lot about them. I think that he goes out Saturday nights, and I think he goes pretty hard. And I think he wakes up Sunday morning with a little headache and kind of lays in bed and watches like 4 or 5 movies in a row. Is that kind of close?
No, man. I golf on Sunday morning.
Oh, that's
What's the matter with you? You already know
You
that.
have to mix the movies in within the golf schedule.
Dude, it takes me about 3 days to watch a movie because I'll watch it during the week and I'll fall asleep like hour marks in.
So like every night?
First night I'll get an hour in. Next night I'll get like 45 in.
That's
then
a
next
terrible
night I'll
way to
finish
watch
it.
movies.
No, it's good.
Oh, you got to piece it all together, man.
Yeah, you get most
Such
of it
a
in.
different experience.
It's great.
But we did want to get into a couple movies in particular. One that you just saw.
Well, so here's the deal. So I've been very tough on Dwayne Johnson, a.k.a. The Rock, right? I've been tough on his acting career. I said his movies haven't been that great. However...
Which is a ridiculous statement, by the way, because The Rock he's the most successful WWE superstar of all time when it comes to entertainment.
Whoa, what about Batista?
Batista? Are you kidding me?
Dude.
Well, who are you talking about? The Rock is.
Wait.
I said The Rock is.
He said Batista.
No, we're talking Rock movies. You said Batista. He said Batista.
I said Batista.
He hates The Rock.
I
okay?
don't hate him. Relax.
So
Here, let me tell you why I don't hate him. I'll tell you why I don't hate him. Let me tell you why. So, I watched Rampage. You know the movie Rampage, right?
yeah, it's with Godzilla and like, what's going on there?
You know that movie is based off of a very, 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 very popular video game from back in the day.
Donkey Kong.
No, the game's called Rampage. There's actually a cameo. Yeah,
I don't play video games. I don't have time for all that.
Dude, I can't believe you never played Rampage. You know, it doesn't surprise me. It does not surprise me at all that you haven't played Rampage.
Everybody that's played Rampage in here, raise your hand. The 2 oldest guys in the room. Thank you very much. And three. Thank you. It's weird. It kind of looked weird. Like, so
the
for
game
me,
is awesome.
But listen, for somebody that's never played the video game before, and that movie comes out, I have no idea that that's related to that video game. So why am I going to go see that movie?
So you didn't see Rampage?
No. So like, everybody in here, like the 3 people that played Rampage, you can go see the movie.
Yeah.
1.
Yeah. Everybody
You
saw
didn't.
it. It just
Dave,
came
you
out.
didn't see it.
Well,
Exactly.
listen, I'm here to
but
give.
I'm giving The Rock props because he's got a pretty good line of work out there right now. If you look, okay, here. Oh,
Oh yeah.
actually, I might have played this.
Who has it? Look at that.
But
Everybody's played Rampage.
The Rock has a pretty good, what do you call it, filmography, or what do you call that?
His
He's
catalog.
All right, so let's go back and look at what he's done. What are your favorite movies that The Rock has done?
Well, I'm a big fan of Walking Tall. Remember Walking Tall?
Yeah.
With Sean William Scott, which, by the way, that's Stifler. What happened to his career? What happened to Stifler's career? How come he can't get any re-rolls anymore?
I don't know, but that American Pie series that was it for him.
Yeah.
I have one that was really good.
Walking Tall? Yeah.
Walking Tall is decent, but the one that's my favorite from the Rock is The Rundown. Has anybody seen The Rundown?
The
Rundown is a great movie. They have Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken's always a fan favorite. Christopher Walken. Who does a good Christopher Walken impression? Maybe we'll get the first person that does a good Christopher Walken impression that could come up to the microphone. You can't, nobody? Okay.
Well, we'll keep
all right.
it out there.
I tried to get somebody on
Those
the
are
mic.
both good ones.
The Rundown's good, but The Rock is doing things now. The Rock's doing a lot of things now, especially with Ballers in this series that he's come out with. I think is he an executive producer of that?
I'm sure he is. Anybody that's the lead actor on shows anymore is always the
So what do you think of that show?
I really like Ballers. I didn't watch Ballers from the beginning, right? And I know it came on after a show I used to watch. I can't remember what it was. Maybe Game of Thrones when Ballers used to come on. But I binged it in about 2 weeks because the episodes are only a half hour.
No, it's definitely an easy binge.
It's just quick.
But it's one of those cameo shows that's kind of similar to Entourage, where you're not necessarily looking for like the content of the show. You just kind of want to see who's going to be in it and kind of follow the storylines closely.
Sports Entourage.
It's one of those things that where you watch with your phone in your hand and you're kind of scrolling through your phone, but you're watching at the same time.
Yeah.
You do that too?
Yeah, yeah.
All the time.
Sports Entourage, big time.
But I think The Rundown is probably my favorite of the Rock's movies. And then I'm going to tell you one other one that I saw recently. You might laugh because you think it's a kids movie, but it's not. It's actually really funny. It's Jumanji. Did anybody see Jumanji?
Jumanji's horrible.
Oh, no, it was
Jumanji's
excellent.
terrible. That movie's awful, dude.
That's 2 thumbs up for me. Definitely. Jumanji was funny. It's got Kevin Hart. It's got cameo appearances by Nick Jonas. There's a girl in there that you'll like a lot if you watched it.
I've watched it. So here's a good trivia for you, Mr. Anti-Marvel. You know the lead female role in that movie plays a prominent role in the Marvel series.
Yes, I did see that. But then Jack Black also plays a female, which is the funniest thing of the whole movie.
Awful.
No, it's definitely Jack Black's underrated in his We're getting harassed right now, folks. Jared, step up to the microphone so you can tell everybody. Come on, everybody wants to hear it.
Well,
we're trying
will figure it
hey,
out.
listen, we're trying to do the show here. You want to be part of the show? Let's be part of the show. Come on, jump on there, man.
All right, listen,
Everybody, Jared Blair, round of applause.
There was a movie with The Rock. His kid got in trouble for something that he didn't do. And then The Rock had what was the name of the movie? You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
Dude, that was a great movie.
I don't know about that.
What was the name of the movie?
I can't think of it.
It was a great movie. I mean,
not
like
bad.
one of the best.
I liked it.
One of The Rock's best.
I put it up there.
He's done a lot that are kind of corny, though.
Snitch. That's it.
Walking Tall definitely falls into the, like, it's borderline corny, though. It is borderline corny. But the like Pain and Gain with Wahlberg, when he did that with Wahlberg,
Dude,
that was a movie that I was.
Pain and Gain.
Oh, that of course you would.
I love Pain and Gain.
Of course you would.
Any movie where you're stopping in the middle of like murder to do curls, I'm in. Obviously.
I wasn't a big fan of it, but that was at the beginning of his career. He's really developed a good filmography at this point, so I want to see him keep going. He's obviously the most successful person in WWE history, even though Jack says that Batista is more accomplished, which is ridiculous. John Cena is trying to work his way up there, but The Rock is definitely.
Dude, Batista's Drax.
If you've ever,
you're not a Marvel guy. You're not
no,
a
but
Marvel
if you've ever watched WWE in its heyday, The Rock is he's the go-to guy. As much as they tried to push Stone Cold, and John Cena's trying to do his thing now in entertainment, and there's been, even now Ronda Rousey's trying to get into things. The Rock will be the king for a very long time.
Well, and ending on that note, Rampage, 2 thumbs up. If you haven't seen Rampage yet, definitely see Rampage. Awesome.
A sponsor of the podcast.
Yeah, by Rampage. The original arcade game, Rampage.
So sports-wise, Jack, what do we have to get into today? I know that people are waiting to hear our takes on a couple things that have gone on in baseball, football. Obviously, football starting up. We're going to start
right here. We're going to start right here.
Right with what's above our head. You can kind of see it in the video right now, but it's the Phillies.
The Phillies.
And where the Phillies are at with things.
Phillies currently 68-54, second place in the NL East, half game behind Atlanta. We know it's been a little skid for them recently. The top of mind question is, are the Phillies going to win the NL East? What do you got, Prof?
I think they absolutely have a shot to win the NL East.
Oh, give me a shot. I want your pick right now. Where we sit.
The Phillies will win the NL East this year. The Phillies will win the NL East this year. And listen, you know how you know you're getting down to the end of the season, you're getting down to crunch time, is because people start talking baseball and people start getting into back and forth every single game. And what I've heard all week on the radio is when the Phillies win, we're definitely in there. We're going to be we're the team to beat. But you know what? If they come out and put up a clunker, then the next day on the radio, everybody's like, this team doesn't have what it takes. And that's how you know people are getting into it, because people just, in general, do not follow baseball throughout the entirety of the season.
Well, I agree with that.
And they don't understand that it's such a grind that, one game is not going to make or break the entire season. Now we're getting down to crunch time. We see what they are and what they can do. They've made moves even as recently as 2 weeks ago that are putting themselves in a position to go after it, and they're going after it with the signings of, the trade for Ramos, the trade for Bohr, which the Bohr one I don't even understand, and maybe Dave can come on and explain this to us later. But the waiver trades and things like that after the trade deadline, I still don't get that.
I can explain that to you.
Why don't you break it down?
All right, so you said a lot. I want to start at the top here. So I actually disagree with you, and as much as it pains me to say, I don't think the Phillies are going to win the NL East. I don't think they're going to hang on, and we'll talk about why. So we'll cover. You want to cover the waiver? All right. So
real quick,
here's what happens.
Just for me.
So I agree with you actually. What I've heard on the radio this week, and it was pretty funny.
It's such a roller coaster because people don't. It's game to game. You can't watch baseball.
I talked about this 2 weeks ago. I don't feel like this city has connected with this team yet, right? I mean, I don't think that most of the people that casually watch this team couldn't name 4 guys on the team right now, right?
I disagree with that.
They're not totally into the team yet. So now that they're starting to win and it looks like they might make the playoffs, they're getting involved. But they watch a game, and if they lose that game, well, instantly they're not going to make it, right? Or if they win that game, yeah, I'm in. Blah, blah, blah. So I agree with you there. What I heard a lot on the radio was, a guy asked a question, can we get another pitcher? And the answer really is no, because what quality starter is going to clear waivers? And this is what has to happen now if you want to pick a guy up. So after the trade deadline, if you want to pick a guy up, a team is going to put him on IR, well, it's like waivers to release him, right?
Right.
So legitimately, then every other team in the league has a chance to claim him. And if multiple teams put a claim in, then it becomes
a trade situation.
Right, a trade situation or a bidding war.
Okay, simple enough.
Right, so there's no good pitchers or position players that are going to clear waivers at this point.
Get that. So
what you see here's a good example. What you see happening every year when a guy goes to waivers, let's say you're the Yankees and the Red Sox are looking to claim a guy, like that's the word they're going to claim a guy, well then you're the Yankees. You put a claim on him too to try and make sure that the Red Sox can't pick him up.
Right.
So as long as one other team out of 31 puts in a claim, you're screwed.
So you don't necessarily if there's a guy out there that you want to trade, you get past the deadline, you can put him on the waivers, and the chances are people are going to throw offers at you.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. The moves that they did, the move for Ramos made a lot of sense to me. The one for Bohr, it made less sense to me because of the Santana. But Santana at this point is he's not getting it done right now.
No.
So I think in the long run they're gonna have a guy like Bohr, and the weird thing to me is they're putting him in the 2 spot, the 4 spot. You can kind of put him there. I don't really get this trend in baseball at this point where you're putting your best hitter in the 2 spot. It's been working that way for a couple years, and now you see guys like Judge. You're seeing guys like power
Stanton,
guys.
The Yankees had Stanton in too.
Exactly, power guys in the 2 spot. So
I hate it.
I don't know if it's just a trend heading that way.
I hate it.
But
gotcha.
No. What they were saying, they brought him on. This is what they said. They said exactly the reason is for when they get to the World Series, play in the American League, they're gonna have an EH. So we have Santana at first and Bohr DH. EH.
It definitely makes sense from a guy off the bench to hit for power for sure.
Your head, but it's not.
That's a long way away. And actually, it's sort of counterintuitive to what it seemed like to me, because I didn't see them making moves at this trade deadline that felt like they were looking to go deep in the playoffs. And I talked about this, but let's go over why. When I read you these statistics, right, based on the moves that you made, so right now the Phillies still, I brought this up a month ago. A month later, they're still 13th in the NL in batting average. They're 11th in OPS. Here's the weird thing about this team, though. They're 6th in the National League in home runs.
Exactly.
Did you see my tweet? I was watching that Mets game before we got our doors blown off 24-4. It's the 3rd inning. It's 3-3 tie, and the Phillies have 3 runs, 3 hits, 3 home runs.
That's the way that these teams are designed anymore. And you looked at the game that was on just before everybody came in here, the game before the Phillies game, the Yankees versus the Blue Jays. All these teams are designed for power right now. It's not these teams are not set up any longer to generate runs, to manufacture runs, as they used to call it.
Right.
Now manufacturing runs is hitting bombs.
And I get it.
And that's how 1 through 8 in the National League, that especially in Citizens Bank Park, a park that's set up with those dimensions, that's how teams are going to build themselves. And I think you're going to continue to see that trend for years to come.
Right, and I get that, but this team, I think you'll agree, they just don't hit well enough, right? I mean, they're not a good hitting team.
It's inconsistent.
They're not a good offensive team.
It's inconsistent. I mean, you will look at it a few nights ago when they did play the Red Sox and they did come out of their shell and they put up 7 runs after they were down 3-0 heading into the 7th, and then all of a sudden it's an explosion of runs. And that's what teams like the Yankees, you're going to have those games. And we talked about this.
Sure.
We talked about this in December when we talked about record number of strikeouts, but also record number of home runs. And that's the way that these things are going. Red Sox the same. Guys like Martinez. Now Mookie Betts is a different type of player.
Yeah,
he's more of a generational guy. But they have guys that they're going to hit for power in those smaller dimension parks. And that's how these teams are being built.
You're a good straight man as always, because you bring up something I want to bring up about why I don't think this team is going to end up making it, because the difference between their home record and away record is amazing. Like they are the best team in the National League at home, and they're the worst on the road, or second worst. Like they can't win on the road. And so when you come down in September, in the last 11 games of the year, we played the Braves 7 times, and I believe 4 of them are in Atlanta. You can have Atlanta get swept late season or lose 3 out of 4, you're gonna lose. And I just don't. This team doesn't travel well enough to me to win.
But that's the thing that I think.
Here's what I wanted to say about the moves. I don't think I wanted them. I wanted them to get Cole for many, many reasons. I talked about that. I don't think they added enough arms to get it done, because they're not going to hit their way in. I mean, Ramos had a great debut, right? But I talked about this on the other way with Osdrubal. Osdrubal came out slow. Both of those guys are good offensive players, so they'll come around. I don't care if they start real hot or real slow; they'll come around. But I just don't think those two are enough.
Asdrubal was a good
to
pickup.
Add to this team.
He was definitely a good pickup,
I agree
and he's somebody that we needed at shortstop, because you cannot go into the playoffs with Kingery at shortstop. I think that's been pretty evident throughout this entire season. The reason that I think that the Phillies are going to win the National League East is because the pitching is more experienced. They have guys that have gone further, especially guys like Arrieta, who are leading the staff. Nola now has proven himself to be almost an MVP candidate.
Nola's a 1A ace.
He's an MVP candidate from what I've been reading a lot about how that's going to be voted. He's not going to be the MVP, but he will get a vote or two, whatever. He'll get a vote for Cy Young, perhaps. But I think that's the difference. In Atlanta, they have a lot of young guys on their staff that have never been there before, and they haven't gone this deep into a playoff run. And that wears out. The reason the season is so long is because it's about durability. It's about how long you can continue to perform. And these younger guys that have never been there, guys like they have guys like Foltynewicz, he's a great pitcher, but how far is he going to go in his really breakout year?
All right, that's one of the biggest reasons why I want to.
I think that's
why these young guys.
But the staff, though they've been inconsistent at times, they've been around a little bit. Not necessarily Pivetta, but guys like Vince Velasquez and guys like Nola and guys like Arrieta. Even Nola, I mean, Nola's he's just pitching.
Nola, dude, I trust Nola even without the experience. I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about the rest of the guys.
I just think that gives them an edge, especially going into a series or just a playoff game. If they need to go into that wild card game and win a game, I think that gives them the edge. I really do.
Okay.
Even though they've been inconsistent on offense, but I think, like I said, that's the trend in baseball right now. It's hit or miss. It's boom or bust. It's
okay,
and that's where I think
I'm okay with that. We're on different sides. I don't think they have enough. I don't think they have enough to make it. I think they're going to fall short. I don't think if they don't win the NL East, they're not getting the wild card. So I think that they are just going to fall short in the NL East to the Braves.
There is another thing. We can agree to disagree on that, but there is another thing that I've heard a lot about this week on the radio, and that was about the position players pitching in that blowout game. And I wanted to get your take on that because we didn't really talk about it too much. And I'll kind of break it down for you. The Phillies were down by, it was like 17-4 at a certain point,
The Mets blew him out.
And Kapler brings in guys like Kingery, who's throwing just eephus pitches up there. It was ridiculous. And then he brings in Roman Quinn to pitch. And this is a trend that's also going on in baseball, where you get into these later games or extra inning games, or situations where the night before you've gone to the bullpen a lot and you're bringing in position players to play. And I kind of wanted to get your take on it, because I wanted to see there was a lot of people yelling back and forth about it was a joke. They made them a mockery of the game. And I wanted to first hear what you thought about that.
So a couple things. So first, actually, was very interesting with Kingery pitching. This is the first time in what was one of the sports writers, I forget who it was, put out that since he's been covering baseball, which is 50-plus years, that a pitcher came in and was throwing pitches that didn't register on the radar gun. And
I did hear that.
I don't know what the minimum speed requirement is, but that's pretty bad.
He was throwing under 50.
Right, yeah, because, I mean, I was registered on a radar gun when I was 10. Right?
I didn't know if he was throwing knuckleballs or what, but he was just chucking them in there.
So there's a lot of things about the new game that I don't like. A lot of things about the sabermetrics and all that I don't like, which includes the shift, which we've argued about before. When it comes to this isn't anything new. I remember growing up watching Mark Grace come in to pitch a blowout game with the
that's in the 16th inning after the starter had gone 9 innings.
But I'm totally okay with, if you're losing by 15 runs, to throw in the towel and save your bullpen. And look, it's a grind. We talk about this all the time. It's a 162-game season. By the way, that was the one thing that we're not mentioning here, to put it in a proper context. That was the first half of a doubleheader. Right. That was the first half, the bookend of a doubleheader. So, of course, you want to save your bullpen.
So how about that he used up the bullpen the night before?
Knowing
he's going into a doubleheader.
So now you're going to get me fired up, because now we're going to start talking about Kapler.
I'm playing a little devil's advocate right now, because I'm kind of on the same wavelength with you.
Yes, but now you want to start talking about Kapler, and you know I'm not the biggest fan of Kapler's. We're going to use a guy for one pitch. We're going to use a guy for one hitter, right? We're going to use 8 relievers in one game. You know I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that at all. I haven't been since he came in. It's one of the reasons why I can't adopt him truly and his philosophy as the manager. Now, the Phillies are doing well this year with it, right? But I have to see that over more of a long term. The longevity of pitching 8 relievers in one game, I don't know. I need to see more, because I hate it personally. That's me.
Well, what's going to happen is when you do manage the game like that, you're going to run into these late season doubleheaders, and you're going to have to throw in a guy from the outfield. You're going to have to throw in a bench guy to throw some pitches. I personally, and I know I was playing devil's advocate, I really don't have a problem with it. I know there was a couple guys that were going off about it and saying it made a joke of the game and things like that. I really don't see it that way. I see it as we're gonna play to win the next game, especially when you're down 25-4. Okay, what's the point of winning or losing 17-4 instead of 25-4 at that point? Throw in a couple guys, save your bullpen, cut your losses.
All right, so let me pivot real quick, because we're on these baseball rules, right? These unwritten rules here. Yeah. Let's talk about the Braves Marlins.
Okay.
Let's talk about unwritten rules, and let's talk about how it makes you feel. So, here's the lead-in. The Braves are playing the Marlins. Ronald Acuna Jr. hit 5 home runs in 5 straight games. Acuna?
Yes.
Acuna, yeah, I don't have the Latina. Acuna. Robert Acuna. 5 straight games home run. So, he's leading off against the Marlins in what would be Game 6. He's trying for what would be an impressive streak for anybody, let alone this young guy. He's 19, by the way. And the first pitch of the game, plunks him.
Okay.
98-mile-an-hour fastball, plunk.
What do you think? What do you think of that?
I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit, and I'll tell you why.
Please do.
Number one, I don't get throwing at the kid. Was he hot dogging? Was he showing off?
Yes.
Maybe a little bit.
No, that's the point. That's the point of this whole thing that's been missed. Because everybody's coming out now and saying, I don't understand why he's going to throw at Acuna. You know what? If the guy's if he's hitting homers off you, get him out. Do better. Get him out. Well, it wasn't the fact that he was hitting 5 homers in a row off you. It's the fact that he was hot dogging it, taking his good old time around the bases, flipping the bat, and that's where the problem is. So you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You get him to stop hot dogging, and you got kind of get him off the plate a little bit. He's not so comfortable in the box anymore.
Well, there's a way to give a guy a brushback versus plunking him.
No.
There's a difference.
What Urania did was exactly the way you do it. You throw it as hard as you can. It doesn't matter. But you hit him below the head. You hit him in the ribs. You hit him in the butt. You hit him in the back.
But the collateral damage is that guy got hurt because of that pitch and then had to end up coming out of the game. So you're still okay with that? You're still okay with legit with throwing at him.
He threw at his body. Hurt. He threw at his body. The fact that Acuna blocked it with his elbow and got hurt, move your elbow out of the way. Take one in the ribs. I don't have a problem with that at all. You need to get guys off the plate, and if he's hot dogging you, you don't let him do it. I know that's an old school thought, and I'm kind of going back and forth from bring in the position players to pitch. That's a new school of thought. You can bring in the power guys. That's a new school of thought. Go with the shift. That's a new school of thought. But at the end of the day, when somebody is getting the best of you and he's hot dogging it at the same time, that's what you do. That's been in baseball for 100 years, and it's never going to stop.
Listen, you're allowed.
The game needs to police itself.
You're allowed to vacillate between old school and new school rules, right? It's like being fiscally conservative, but liberal, whatever. I messed that
up. I'm not
anyway,
fiscally conservative.
You can be some of both, right? That's the beauty of it, and I'm the same way. I just don't like throwing at a guy intentionally the first pitch of the game that hard, and then it ends up him getting hurt. Okay, he came back, and it's
so what do you do? Pitch around him?
No. There's two things here that I want to say. So first, I'm okay with the brushback pitch or like trying to get him off the plate or that sort of thing. But that clearly was going to hit him no matter what, right? Like that pitch was hitting him.
Sure.
Unless he.
It was supposed to.
Right. Exactly. So that pitch is hitting him. Now there's a big difference here. Okay, so he had to leave that game for an injury, but he ends up playing the next game. What happens if it broke his wrist and he's out 4 weeks? You still okay with that?
Yeah.
Because I'm not. I'm not. Why? Because he took a little long time looking at the ball going up the first base?
No, because if you're somebody that is hitting 5 home runs in a row and you're hot dogging it and taking your time around the bases and bat flipping, that sixth time up, I'm expecting to get one in the ribs. So I'm not putting my, you know what? I'm going up there with my guards on. I might wear a flak jacket.
You want the Barry Bonds armor?
I'm just telling you. You know what? You if you're gonna do that and you're gonna bat flip and you have another game next series or the next day, I'm ready to get hit. I'm ready to get hit in the ribs.
So the game before, say Yankees Mets, he hits a home run. Next game he comes up, he gets thrown at. Is that what you guys are talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't understand your.
No, we're not talking about Yankees Reds.
It's a different thing now.
Huh?
Dude,
get out of here.
We love you, Jared. No, Jared. So it's just for Jared. We're talking about the Mets and the Marlins series.
No, the Braves and Marlins.
Braves and Marlins.
The Braves and Marlins.
Yeah. So that's my only point is. If you're gonna do that, that's fine.
Well,
that's your choice to do that, but be ready to get plunked in the ribs. Exactly.
Urena is getting suspended, obviously, because
it's fine. That's fine.
It's supposed to happen.
But you know what? At the same time, you back up the guys that were on the mound the days before. That's getting shown up.
Guess what? The next time the Braves play the Marlins, it's gonna be ugly.
And that's fine.
It's gonna be real. It's gonna be real.
This is how rivalries develop. This is how the divisions evolve. I'm glad that it was within the same division.
You gotta understand,
let's go to Nick Corliss here.
The rivalries is why you watch baseball.
And
every inning of the Braves-Phillies game or a Mets-Phillies game, you want to watch because of the rivalry in every pitch.
And on the flip side, what it does do, right, is give the Marlins something to play for in a sense, right? Because now they'll get to play the Braves again, and those tensions, right, are already going to be rising because of what happened. I'm just not a fan of throwing at somebody intentionally to where they're going to get hurt.
I think you need to know when to expect it.
It's different to me. It's just a different game. Like if you want to do the sabermetrics and the shift, then you got to deal with bat flips and
Now I will say this. I will say that if he did hit 5 home runs in a row, or every day he hit home runs off him, and he just put his head down and ran around the bases, then it's completely different. It's a completely different situation where then if he hits him and he throws and by the way, that was the hardest ball Urena's ever thrown in Major League Baseball. It was 97 miles an hour.
97.5. We're rounding up to 98.
If the kid puts his head down and runs around the bases, then I do have a problem with it. But the fact that he was hot dogging it, and that's the point that has not been brought up within the media, Twitter, anything, radio, anything.
You know what? I'm tired of the put your head down and run around the bases, man. I'm tired of it.
That's the way you play the game.
If you hit a home run, you want to flip your bat, flip your bat.
I get it. It's the entertainment factor. But
Absolutely.
But be ready to pay the consequences. Be ready to stand in the
Till you get
box
hit with
the
a
next
baseball.
time. Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, I think.
yeah.
I mean, it's happened to probably big dog sitting right there in the center of the room. He's probably got plunked a couple times.
Get thrown at. So, all right, let me ask you this. Let's pivot a little bit. Let's pivot a little more. You were talking about MVPs and Cy Youngs. So, who you got as the NL Cy Young? Because I want to bring up an interesting guy.
It's really hard for me to not say Nola, but it has to be Max Scherzer. I
Okay.
mean, he's got a sub-1 whip right now. He strikes out like 15 guys.
I got a guy that can challenge Scherzer, and it ain't Nola. How about DeGrom?
DeGrom has been unbelievable. He's really been unbelievable.
He's
he has
7
the same
and 7.
thing.
So here is the ultimate argument. But that shouldn't matter. But it's not an M. It's
All
not.
right,
But
so
hey,
we can start arguing back and forth.
Wait, but let's look at this, right? Remember when Felix Hernandez won the Cy Young for the Mariners? He was 12 and 11. Right. DeGrom's in the same boat. Now he's 7 and 7 right now. But he's still got time to get some more decisions.
Okay. Here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So. Would you be, let's say this, taking a half a step back, were you okay when King Felix won
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. Because who was in the race with them? Who was in the race at that point? That's the thing. You have to look at the difference and the distance that the one guy puts in between the rest of the field. Because Scherzer and DeGrom right now are 1-2. They definitely are. Nola is a very, very close third, but the fact that Nola is in the race, it brings him almost up to where DeGrom is. Scherzer has been so ridiculous, though, as far as strikeouts. I think that's the difference. The strikeout numbers and the average per game that Scherzer's getting, it's just you can't take that away from him.
However, I'll offer you a counterpoint. There is something to be said for pitching that well on a bad team. Because you don't often see guys with the ERAs and pitching that well like DeGrom is on bad teams like that, because we play baseball. It's difficult when you're on a bad team like that. It bleeds throughout the team, right? There's something to be said for a guy having a season that he's having this year, pitching on a team as bad as the Mets. And on the flip side of that, right, if we talk about the Nationals and their success, the Nationals are one game over 500 right now. They're not exactly lighting the world on fire.
No, they're not. And everybody knows that they're a much more talented team. If you looked at every roster at the beginning of the season, they're obviously the pick to win the NL East.
So you think about it this way.
Think about
it this way. If you're Scherzer, right, you come out, and I would like to pull, and I wish I did before I asked this question, the average run support that Scherzer gets versus DeGrom, right? Now, a lot of that goes into just the total win stat, but that also goes into your confidence to when you step on the hill, to whereas DeGrom knows he can't have a misstep. And I'm not trying to tell you that DeGrom's better pitcher than Scherzer. I'm just saying I have so much admiration for a guy who can have the season that he's having on a team that's a dumpster fire like the Mets are.
No, they definitely are. But he's also in a contract year. He's pitching. He's pitching for his life. He's pitching for a contract.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of why.
Which it's not like he wouldn't get a contract either way. But this kind of is going to set up a new record for a pitcher for the next. He's going to get a 5-year contract, 7-year contract, and it's going to be a record for a pitcher. And good for him. But the fact of the matter is that Scherzer, based on his strikeout numbers alone, I mean, he's the runaway Cy Young winner. And it sucks because Nola is really getting close, and he's going to get one.
Oh, yeah. Nola's
going to get one.
I love Nola. All right, so last thing on baseball, I want to throw this to you real quick. So before we get into football, I heard this statistic yesterday that they kept throwing around the mothership, and it really pissed me off. Pardon my French.
No, don't say pissed on our podcast.
Sorry.
This is a family establishment.
So this is what these guys keep saying about baseball being in trouble. The average age of a baseball fan right now is 57. Let me ask you something. What does the survey say that determines if you're a baseball fan or not? I bet you what it says on on this survey is it asks for gender, age, and then it gives you like 5 sports to choose from. And it says, what's your favorite? And so most people are going to say football. But, Nick, are you a baseball fan?
Absolutely. But that's interesting, though.
So, ready? Let me complete, and I want your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
So, because they put a 1 on the NFL column instead of MLB or baseball, then that means, well, the average age of a baseball fan is 57. That's crap. That's not true. They're just saying that they maybe like football more than baseball, but that doesn't mean they're not a baseball fan. But the ESPN's throwing this stat around every show. Oh, the average age of a baseball fan is 57. That doesn't even make any sense.
It's hard. Listen. It's harder to be a fan of baseball. It's harder to be home 162 nights a year. It's hard to get into that schedule. that's the difference. If baseball was played a little bit less, which I don't necessarily, I'm not promoting that, but if it was a little more rare, we get 162 games a year to watch. Well, and you're going to see now getting into later in the season when we're in a playoff run that now this city does become a baseball city a little bit.
Well, I'm still going to disagree with that. Until I see people actually showing up to this team's games, I still don't feel like they've connected with this team. We would go on a tangent on that because I did that last week, but I still don't feel like.
All right, so
I hear more Eagles preseason talk
a month
than
ago,
I do Phillies.
A month ago,
first place.
if we got Manny Machado a month ago, do you think that they would be selling out the place?
I don't know.
I do. I think they definitely would.
I don't know, man.
I 100% definitely think they would, and that brings us to our kind of a side thing that we wanted to talk about a little bit was next year. Is Bryce Harper coming here, and that place will be packed when they do. And Nola's now a star. If they have Arrieta's going to be a star. Reese Hoskins is a budding star. There's a lot of guys that are coming up, and that takes some development. That
takes
takes
young team.
That
young
takes
core.
The first time that Chase Utley came up, the first day that he was in the majors, first day Ryan Howard was in the majors, first day Jimmy Rollins was in the majors. They weren't filling the stadiums up.
No.
This is an evolving thing, and I think we're on the right track at this point.
All right, so. You're right. It's a good segue. Let's talk about why we're saying Bryce Harper comes to the Phillies. So yesterday, a report came out from Bleacher Report that GMs talked about an MLB GM leaked that they were talking about Bryce Harper where he's going to land next year, and he flat out came out and said, "There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be a Philly." And he gave a couple reasons why. What Philly's doing with their cap space, they didn't make any big moves this offseason, including Machado, right? Looking to sign him, and that this current Major League GM is convinced that Harper will be on the Phillies.
And that's great.
So the question is, are you okay with giving him 10 years, $700 million?
Yeah, because they have the money to do it.
I am.
They absolutely have the money to do it. And like I said, we talked a little bit about this before the show today. He is not one of these guys that he's a 28, 29-year-old that you're giving a 10-year contract to. He is a 25-year-old kid that has abilities at different positions. So you're not going to you're not going to overpay for a guy and then have his body give out on him and not be able to continue his career. He's going to be good until he's at least 35, and he's been one of the top power hitters in the league, even as a 23, 24-year-old. So he's still continuing that production this year as a 25-year-old. That's going to run through till he's 35.
Well, the theory,
and you can put him at first base. You can. I mean,
we talked about that, and I agree.
He's a talented enough kid where you can put him there.
The theory against these big contracts, we've talked about this too, is you can run down the list of the tail ends of these contracts, right? We dealt with it here in the city with Howard. Pujols,
he was 29, 30 when we gave him the
A-Rod for the
contract.
Yankees, right? Because you end up at the tail end of these contracts paying $40, $50, $60 million a year for a player who's not even worth $6.
But
or $7, right?
you're talking about guys getting into their 40s by the time the contract expires.
Even that, Pujols started declining at 36, and guy plays first base in DHs. But the bat starts to decline too, and that will happen to Harper as well. But I don't care. I don't care. I'll pay the first 6 years to have the last 4. I don't care. That's the kind of talent he is. That's the kind of superstar he is, and that's the addition to a team like this that can put you in World Series conversation.
Yeah, and I think your point is basically that you're not paying a bloated contract for a guy past his peak years. You're paying that contract now for a guy that's heading into his peak years, which is the difference from those other contracts.
Correct. And at the tail end, we know, even if you do put him at first, right, that he's still going to see a decrease in production versus when he's 27, when he's 34. But that's fine. I don't care. I really don't care, because whatever that decrease is, and if we're overpaying him, it's fine, because we probably didn't pay enough for him when he was 27. Because the guy's the second or third best hitter in baseball. So I'll take that.
Listen, the guys that are playing this year have done a good job, but are you going to platoon Nick Williams, and who else are they running out there at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like Nick though, but either
no,
way,
you do, but
way.
he's not Bryce Harper.
No, and nobody's Bryce Harper. This team doesn't have anybody close to Bryce Harper.
So not only does that bring in the power production and it brings in the box office.
That's that's the part we're not talking about, which needs to be talked about.
But that also, with baseball the way it is, enables you to continue to bring people in and continue to develop, but also bring in high-end free agents if you need to.
Correct. And the bottom line is the Phillies, if you want to be a major market baseball team, which, let's be honest, Philadelphia, fourth largest media market, right? They're a big market. In 08 and 09 and 10, our salary was inflated like the Yankees. If you want to compete, if you want to play with the big boys, then you got to pay like the big boys.
For sure.
So
I think we're all in agreement here. I don't know if everybody else out there is in agreement as far as bringing Harper in. I know there's a lot of question about his attitude and things like that, but he's one of those guys, just like T.O. was, that when you bring him in, like outside of Philadelphia, you hate him, but when you bring him in, you love having him here.
Give me started.
And I think that's one of the things that we will like if we have the opportunity to bring him in here. So
speaking of T.O., let's pivot to the NFL.
I'm a good straight man for that, right?
You're always a good straight
Exactly.
man. It's multiple times a show. It doesn't need to go unsaid. Sometimes I say it. So I wanted to revisit the Hall of Fame real quick, only because it's going to segue into what I want to talk about first in football. But also, I had a huge remission last week's show. I talked about a lot of the inductees. I talked about Ray Lewis. I talked about Urlacher. I talked about Dawkins. But I remitted one of my favorite players of all time. Literally.
Randy Moss, baby.
Randy Moss, baby. I can't believe I did that, and I apologize
Straight cash,
personally to Randy Moss for omitting him because he's probably my second favorite player
We
of all time.
will try to get Randy Moss on the show next week. We're in talks with him right now to bring him on, so we'll see if we can get him on.
I love Randy Moss.
I think Randy Moss is, if you are a fan of unbelievable explosive plays, which why wouldn't you be? He had to be one of your favorite players
for my
back
money,
throughout the 90s, early 2000s.
For my money, and this is everybody hates when I say this.
Don't say it.
Yeah,
Don't say
I'm
it.
gonna
Don't say it.
it.
Don't say it.
For my money, he's the best receiver of all time.
Man, you can't say that over Jerry Rice. You can't do it.
I can.
You just can't.
I'll
you
fight
can't.
it.
You
Tooth,
can't.
nail, fingernail.
Definitely more explosive, more fun to watch, definitely, than Jerry.
The
Jerry
most
Rice. But
unguardable receiver in NFL history.
because he could jump, and he was the first guy that kind of was. I'm not gonna say the first guy, but he kind of reworked the one-hand catch. He went up and got the ball. He was the guy that you could throw the ball to. You knew he was going to catch it. He was going to bring it in.
He's incredible
every time.
hands. He's a total package, dude. Height, speed, athletic ability, hands. You look at a guy like T.O., he had 3 out of 4. He just didn't have the hands.
So I don't know. It's funny because
Nick
we had two guys.
He led the league in drops every year. Randy Moss didn't drop the ball in his life. Randy Moss still doesn't drop the ball.
We had two guys that went into the Hall of Fame this year that would go down as probably the 2-3, whichever way you see it,
Yes,
receivers of all time. And Jack put out a show last week by himself. Unfortunately, I was down the shore relaxing on vacation. I'd like to go back. But I disagreed with his take on T.O. doing his own thing. I was really upset with the writers and the fact that the way that the Hall of Fame makes these decisions, and that T.O. as the second or third, either way you look at it, receiver of all time, that's ridiculous. The second or third receiver of all time is automatically a first ballot Hall of Famer, and there's no way that you can debate that. So when the writers have this grudge against him where they're going to, they didn't come talk to him at the they weren't able to get to him in the locker room after the games, or he was smart with them after the games, or whatever the case is, that's a ridiculous reason to hold somebody out. And I really disagree with you. He said, you know what? You guys didn't vote me in the first 2 years that I had an opportunity to get in. I'm a first ballot Hall of Famer. Forget you. I'm doing my own thing. And that's what T.O.'s career was doing his own thing, and he did it well. He did it well for a long time for a couple different teams. I know he got passed around to different teams. Some would say that that's a bad thing for him, a negative, going to different teams because he didn't get along with every single locker room he was in. But as far as his talent goes and as far as his production on the field, first ballot Hall of Fame.
Okay, so here, let's make a deal. You and I are going to make a deal on this. We agree in principle. We agree in principle on the terms. We just have to agree.
The voting needs to change.
We just have to agree on the settlement because I agree with everything you said. My biggest problem with him not showing up is that, first off, it takes away from him himself, like his own moment, and it's more about going with his peers. Because when I look at the stage of the guys that were sitting there for their speeches, I see literally transitional players from the same time period. Urlacher, Ray Lewis, Brian Dawkins, Randy Moss. T.O. should be sitting there with those guys. He should be sitting on that stage with those guys.
Urlacher was a guy
I
that
knew
was,
you were going to go.
Listen, Urlacher was a guy that I loved watching. I don't know if he had the longevity.
Yes, he did. So
How many years did he
Matt
play?
High's here. We watched the Hall of Fame speeches.
I loved Urlacher
at his house,
but
and
he seemed out of place
the
there.
first thing that he said to me is, "Do you think Urlacher belongs there with those guys?" And I said 100%. So we pulled up the numbers are there, everything's there. To me, Urlacher was every bit the player Ray Lewis was. He just didn't do it for a couple more years. So, dude, he's absolutely. I mean, to me, it was best middle linebackers like of the last 40 years. It's Ray Lewis's 1 and Urlacher's 1A.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard to say when you have
And dude,
when
the
you have
numbers
Ray
are
Lewis
there.
up there.
The
But
numbers are there.
I don't
It's
know.
all there.
He did seem a little bit out of place up there. I guess this was a great class that just went
Incredible.
in. I mean, just
So how much better would it have been to see T.O. up there with them guys?
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. I honestly, and this is terrible to say, I didn't even watch it. I watched the clips.
I know you do.
I don't. I did go on YouTube and watch some of Ray Lewis's speech and some of Dawkins' speech.
You watched more of the T.O. from Tennessee Chattanooga than I did.
I heard that Ray Lewis and from what I heard from Ray Lewis's speech, it was a little bit more awkward than it had to be. It was kind of
it was good, but he was all over the stage,
all over the
man.
place.
He was
talking about
it was
like,
full on Ray Lewis. It was what you'd expect from Ray Lewis. It was great, but dude, he had the clip on mic. He was all over the stage.
That's gonna be a
He's
thing
using
now.
the body language.
That's definitely gonna be a thing now. The lavalier mic and walking around the stage.
He
and
also
things like that. It's gonna be
had
terrible.
the full Carlos Boozer going on. The full paint on, like I get accused of the beard, but like everything.
You do
around-
paint your beard.
Yeah.
But no, listen. All things considered, Urlacher does. He passes the smell test for Hall of Fame.
He's there.
But he did seem out of place with that class. That class was really good that just went in. It's a shame
Well,
T.O. was not in the class 2 years before that.
Hang on. I might commit sacrilege here, but do you think that career-wise, Brian Dawkins is a more accomplished player than Brian Urlacher?
Absolutely. Compare numbers to any safety in the game. Absolutely. I mean, when you look at interceptions, when you look at forced fumbles, when you look at hurries, and they have all these stats at this point. But as far as that's not even the biggest thing. It was the intimidation factor with Brian Dawkins. Brian Dawkins changed the game that way because guys were scared to come across the middle. Guys were scared to go deep because they knew he was sitting out there. It wasn't necessarily even the interceptions. It wasn't necessarily the forced fumbles. It was the intimidation factor and what he brought to his own team. The way he led his team. That's such an underrated thing that I think gets overlooked is there's not a lot of guys out there that can fire a team up the way he did. And if you've ever watched any of the YouTube hype videos, you know that he was the best to ever do that.
Oh, you don't have to sell me on Dawkins. I love Dawkins.
You just asked me a question. I'm just telling you the answer.
Yeah, but I feel like your answer sort of confirms to me that there are differing opinions on Urlacher as a player because if I compare number to number, Brian Urlacher is probably the 4th or 5th greatest middle linebacker of all time. So then you'd have to go and compare Dawkins, and is he the 2nd or 3rd greatest free safety of all time? It might be a stretch. I mean, there's a guy
who
who's
else
on,
you have?
There's
you know you have Ronnie
Lott.
Lott.
There's a guy on the ballot next year who I think is hands down a better player overall than
Troy
Dawkins. Ed Reed.
Ed
Reed's the best free
Ed
safety.
Reed's up there.
Ed Reed to me is the best free safety.
Why does it
of all
have to
time,
be
my
that?
opinion.
But why does it have to be that?
But this is what we do, right? This is what we do. This is we start breaking guys down individually, right? At position, and we compare them.
He's top 10.
But I'm doing
at
nothing
a minimum,
to denigrate Brian Dawkins. You know how much I love Brian Dawkins.
At a very minimum, he's top 10.
Oh, yes. No question.
And he brought different things to the table than guys like Palomalu and guys like Ed Reed.
I think Palomalu's overrated.
I don't. I think he brought a lot of intensity to that team. And that defense was really it revolves around him and Harrison, obviously. But
yeah,
the difference is Brian Dawkins was Philadelphia. He's the most beloved athlete in Philadelphia history, I would argue.
So, as another here's Nick. Here we're really gonna ruffle the crowd here. Nick, good straight man. Let's talk about another beloved Philadelphia Eagle and if he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. This came up this week, and I put this out on Twitter because somebody had tweeted a comparison of Jim Kelly's statistics to Donovan McNabb. Jim Kelly's in the Hall of Fame. Donovan McNabb is not. The question is Donovan McNabb a Hall of Famer?
Here's the thing.
I'm asking.
Here's the thing. So I made a lot of.
Number-wise,
when we had this conversation earlier, I made a lot of arguments for Donovan. But there's a problem. There's a problem with that. I think the fact that if you have to ask the question, is this person a Hall of Famer? I think a lot of times that gives you your answer.
Okay, so well, I can go both ways on this. I could really go both ways on this, but let's Bob
Cahill, everybody, is going to step up to the mic and let us know.
So what makes
Kelly a Hall of Famer?
Jim Kelly is a Hall of Famer?
Then
So
McNabb
you're talking about the stat sheet that I tweeted, right? That had Kelly compared to McNabb.
Maybe, yeah, I saw. Maybe you tweeted
Yes,
it.
I did.
I've seen it.
So by numbers alone, you have McNabb in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So
He didn't win shit, but
So let me ask you a question, though. Do you give any credence to the fact that they played in two different eras, almost separated by 15 years?
it's a big point.
The
No.
point- the point
he's
is-
right. Nick's right.
The point is that the game of football right now is a much different game than it used to be. Back then, when you got guys like Aikman, Jim Kelly, even Brett Favre. Brett Favre was kind of the gunslinger guy that they went to the pass more, but they still had guys like Dorsey Levens that are run the ball. It was still a very run-centric game. Now it's a little bit different.
Nick
I
makes
know,
a great point.
Now I know that Donovan had guys like Brian Westbrook, who's an unbelievable player. I think I would make.
Don't fade away. Don't fade away from where you're going. Where you're going is
So hold on.
keep going.
But
It's not the weapons part. It's the number generation.
But let's look at what guys like Westbrook did for Donovan McNabb's career. He was a capable receiver out of the backfield, where there was not much emphasis put on that 15, 20 years ago. So guys like and listen. Jim Kelly had Thurman Thomas.
I was to say I don't like this.
Troy
argument.
Aikman had Emmitt Smith. These are guys you can rely on, and they had the best offensive lines in the game at the point. But the point is, now the game is moving so pass-centric, and everything revolves around the pass. Not only that, the tight end has become such a bigger part of the game. And guys like McNabb, who had Chad Lewis, and who had
Chad Lewis.
I mean, yeah, he was a big part of their offense at that point. L.J. Smith was a big part of their offense at that point.
What, dropping passes?
But these are different aspects of the passing game that give McNabb those stats to get over top of Jim Kelly.
All right, so
it's a different game than it used to be 15, 20 years ago.
okay. Well, see, that's the problem.
Say
If
that
you
again, Bob.
Is that you're saying that Jim Kelly had a lot more or had less talent around him than McNabb?
No, not at all. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying the scheme, the way that they generated offense, it was a lot different. They had guys like Thurman Thomas that could run out of the backfield, straight handoff guy, I formation, straight handoff guy. It was different for McNabb. Yes, he did have Westbrook, but Westbrook was such a capable receiver that's where a lot of those in that screen game. Everybody talks about Andy Reid and McNabb as far as the screen game. That was the best part of their offense. And that's where if you go back and look at a lot of those yards that McNabb racks up and gets above Kelly, that's such a big part of it.
I mean, a lot of his yards aren't off like talent. Like it's a screen pass that he gets 15 yards on. Not exactly.
Listen, I'm not going to say Donovan didn't have talent. He's the best quarterback in Eagles history to this point. But I'm saying that the game is changing so much right now that and Andy Reid's offense, even at that point, was kind of it was different than anybody had ever really seen.
Here, you want me to give you guys the number
even if
comparison?
I said that Jim Kelly is a little bit better, was the last point. He's not that much better, and it's not the baseball Hall of Fame. We're talking about the NFL. It's a lot easier to get in the Canton than it is in the Cooper's.
Well, by the way,
I
like
would say
baseball,
that,
I think you have to have a higher standards for than football.
So, but the argument about the weapons works against McNabb in that he never had receiver weapons. I mean, look at the weapons.
One year he
had
had
two. That's it.
Look what he did.
Well, yeah, and that's the
He had a
point.
really good
I
year.
agree. I think Donovan is the Hall of Fame. Well, here's the numbers right here. Ready? I'll read
And
them
he
all.
did with the legs. Jim Kelly couldn't. I mean,
Jim Kelly, 237 touchdowns, 175 interceptions. Donovan, 234, 117. So 3 less touchdown passes, but what, 60 less interceptions?
Well, yeah, and I see.
McNabb had more yards. Kelly, 35,400.
How many games, too, are we
McNabb,
talking about,
37, 27.
How many games
They
did he
played the
play?
same amount of seasons.
Listen,
They both played 11 seasons.
you guys are both talking about a guy that played under a coach that is notoriously the most pass-centric coach in history of the game.
you know, what was it because Donovan was a really good quarterback that Andy Reid could do that? Like you're sort of saying,
I'm not.
because of that McNabb was good.
I don't want
maybe
to. I don't
Andy Reid
want
was good because
I don't
of
want to take it away from Donovan that he wasn't a great player. But the fact
Like,
is,
what came
it
first,
was.
the chicken
The
or the
fact
egg?
is, there was it's a much different game than when we're talking about when Jim Kelly played. It's the most pass-centric coach in the history of the sport, and he had guys out of the backfield like Westbrook that could actually play in that offense and catch the ball on those screens and get you, 50 yards at a clip.
Listen, I hear what you're saying, and I think a lot of what you're saying is he had this Westbrook around and made him better. He had Andy Reid, made him better. But you could say the flip side, because he could run the ball, they had to play defense differently. Now you have to worry about McNabb running the ball. So now they have to play.
He ran
a
the ball
different
for maybe
defense.
2-3 years.
So it goes
He
both
ran the
ways.
ball for 2-3
He ran
years
the
and
ball-
he was
Always a
done.
threat.
Here's
run
his
the ball.
running statistics, just to put him out there. He ran the ball for 3,500 yards and 29 rushing TDs. That's
Which is great.
Pretty good.
Listen, and when in his second year that he was the starter, when he was running the ball,
Yeah,
it was the most amazing thing.
Right.
Like he was on the cover of Madden, everything. He was like, I thought he was an MVP player. He doesn't have an MVP, which
neither does Jim Kelly.
But that's still, yeah. I mean,
So why don't we bring in another guy to the
Nick
mix?
likes his Hall of Famers to have MVPs.
Let's bring in another guy to the mix here. So it's
Yeah,
two,
this guy
it's
came
actually
up.
three kind of different type of quarterbacks: Jim Kelly, Donovan McNabb, and let's bring in Steve McNair to the mix. A guy that
Oh, this is a good one.
A
Yeah.
guy that does have
I'm not sure I would
the
put Steve
yards
McNair in.
passing. He does have the MVP. He does have the Super Bowl appearance. Obviously, Jim Kelly has that. Donovan has an appearance.
are you saying you don't think he's a Hall of Famer? Like, are you just playing devil's advocate?
Hey, wait, here.
I'm doing a little bit of both.
He's doing both. Let me give you- we'll give-
last week I argued for McNabb to be in the Hall of Fame against Jim Kelly. Looking back at it and thinking of the different ways that the game is played right now, I really think that if you do have to ask yourself, is this guy a Hall of Famer? I think that tells you your
So-
answer, and I think that's probably a no.
Here's the thing, number-wise, if we look at McNair's numbers, right?
I had to look at his numbers.
I got him right
to be
here.
honest, I don't know.
McNair's got 31,000 passing yards, 3,600 rushing, 174 TDs, 119 interceptions. So he's light on the touchdowns, but he's got 37 rush TDs.
Yeah.
But here's the question with McNair, right? Here's the thing with McNair. Don't look at numbers. Does McNair pass the eye test to you? Because if I was talking
Well-
about eye testing players, McNair's in for me.
But I didn't watch him every week, so it's hard for me to say. Like, I mean, I meant, but like, I have to go back and look, and you have to look at the numbers a little bit. But did he have the talent? Yeah. I mean, he was athletic as shit. But,
Right.
I mean, I just think Jim Kelly's like, he's a no doubt about it. My point is, he's a no doubt about a Hall of Famer, right? No one disputes Jim Kelly.
4 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
should be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
McNabb's numbers at the
Not
very,
even
are
comparable.
almost identical in a lot of respects.
Yeah, but
And you could say, like, all right, the errors are different. And so you can make the point that he is a better quarterback, Jim Kelly, and I wouldn't really disagree with you. But I think the way you
Talent-wise,
could say-
absolutely. I mean, as far as the things that he can do on a field, absolutely. I think he's 100%.
Oh,
third quarterback.
Steve McNair.
McNair's that no. Come on.
Steve McNair has an MVP. He's thrown for more. Has he thrown for more yards than McNabb?
No, he
Who?
hasn't.
McNair? No, McNair's short on the yards. 31,000 passing
Yeah, but
yards.
MVP's
He's
like
short.
Terry Pendleton as an MVP.
All right,
And,
so let's. All
Well,
right.
here's all right. So here's the thing. I want to go back to, because there's parts about your argument that I agree with on the passing, and I thought this is where you're going, but there's parts I disagree with, and I just got a text from a very special listener who's going to back up what I'm going to say. So
Are they going to jump on the mic?
on the front side, I agree with you that you cannot look at quarterbacks comparing them backwards, right, arrow-wise, and just look
Arrow-wise is
straight at
completely
yards
different.
and touchdowns, because the forward pass in the NFL has evolved. The rules have changed for defenders, so they can't cover receivers the way they used to, right? You've got all that dynamics going on. So guys are
I
going to
didn't
rack
even mention
up,
that part.
Right, guys are going to rack up more passing yards now, certainly, than they would have 10, 20 years ago. But on the flip side of that, the Buffalo Bills were innovative for their time of the forward pass. And by the way, we're talking about Westbrook and his weapons. Thurman Thomas was very much the same.
He's not a pass catcher like
yes,
Westbrook.
he was. Yes,
No.
he was. Well,
Maybe I pulled that out of my butt.
you want to hear Thurman Thomas's receptions per year?
Go ahead.
89, 60 for 669 yards, 90,
What's his
49
total?
for
Give me the
532.
totals. Don't give me year
his
by year.
total receiving and
Yeah.
472 catches, 4,500 yards.
Okay, maybe I was off on that. Maybe I didn't watch as much Thurman Thomas as I thought.
Jack, top five quarterbacks. Nick, Jack,
out of here.
Jared wants us to do
Hang
Mount
on,
Rushmore.
Hang on, ready? So here's another one. Here's another good one to talk about because it came up on Twitter. How we feel about Eli Manning getting in the Hall of Fame?
Eli Manning is a lock Hall of Famer.
Eli Manning walks in. Eli Manning walks in day one. He walks in.
As far as throwing the ball, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 Super Bowls, I mean, you can't pull it away from the guy. He's an MVP. It's a lock. It's
here's
done.
Eli's
It's
numbers.
done deal, and he has the name.
Numbers, by
He's
the
a
way.
name alone.
He's still playing. Here's his numbers: 51,000 passing yards, 60% completion percentage, 339 touchdowns, 228 interceptions. He walks in. 2 Super Bowl rings, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. Walks in.
Jared's yelling at me. What do you need, Jared?
You didn't answer questions.
I didn't hear your question.
You said the top 5 quarterbacks to be right, and then fuck, who
My
top
top
5
5
quarterbacks.
quarterbacks. Okay.
All right.
I'll go Brady, Montana, Elway. Oh, right now? I don't know, dude. I mean, geez, I have to look at everything.
Get out of here. Bob, take Jared to the bar. All right. So,
Jared, let me buy you a drink.
yeah, it's on my tab.
Listen,
Let's move on.
I
Let's
think
move on
the
to
fact
preseason.
is
Let's talk
Eli
about
Manning is I think
Eli's
he's walking in the Hall of Fame.
If anybody wants to come in
And if
and
you look
argue
at his
otherwise,
stats compared to guys like McNabb, and you look at his stats compared to guys like Kelly, and even McNair, and it's head over heels. He's in. He's done. He's in. It's a
Say
lot.
magic numbers, he's walking.
So there's going to be 3 Mannings in the Hall of Fame. But again, you can't compare Archie to Peyton to
No.
even Eli at this point
Well,
because
Archie
it's
was
a much
and
different name.
If you go back, Archie was innovative for his time because he was a running quarterback back when there wasn't very many. So that's yeah.
We love you, Jared.
All right, let's talk about preseason a little bit because everybody's all excited about preseason. Let me just ask you a simple question. Do you care at all about preseason?
No, and I don't think anybody does. I don't think there's anybody that's gonna get all.
I think a lot of people care about
I
preseason.
really don't think people are gonna rant and rave about preseason. But there's a couple different things about preseason that are interesting, and the first one is about the change of the rules. And I've been watching.
big one.
When I've been watching these preseason games, it's apparent to me that these referees have been told to. There's a different helmet rule in place than was last year, and it's really getting to the point where you can't tell the difference. It's really hard. It's almost if the hit is too hard and the guy's helmet happens to glance someone's shoulder, or it's really difficult to do. And I really don't think that watching on TV you get an idea for what these referees are saying as far as the speed of the game. I mean, if you've ever gone to a training camp, if you've ever gone to a preseason game, if you've ever gone to a regular season game, you see the speed of the game, and you cannot make these calls the way that these guys are doing it. And they're being asked to make these calls on the field in real time and say that's an illegal hit. And now it just has to be a hard hit that your head is semi down. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's really, really getting confusing and frustrating. And when I watched the game on Thursday night, the first call, the first flag that came in was for it was on Rodney McLeod. That I was like, that's a legitimate hit that I've been watching for 32 years.
All right, so take a breath.
Sorry, I
take
just
a breath.
went hard on that.
No, it's good though. Take a breath. I'm going to calm you down. So I agree with you. I heard a lot about this the last 2 weeks, and I read a great article about it from Peter King, who I respect. I think you respect Peter King too.
I think everybody does. He's the guy.
He interviewed a lot of current and former officials, talked about putting this rule in place. And here's the problem up front with the rule, and we're all seeing it right now in preseason, is that some of these hits are just the cleanest hits you've ever seen, but they get called.
Absolutely.
But they're trying to over-enforce the crux of the rule, which is just simply, as you go to finish a hit, if you tilt your helmet down, it's a penalty. Now, to try and calm you down a little bit, what was said in this article is that they have all come out and said, all the officials have come out to say, they are legitimately over-calling this play during the preseason.
But
They're over-calling it on purpose during the preseason for 2 reasons. One, because they want to have film to look at on penalties that were called or not called so they can break down what actually is and isn't, right, to try and fine-tune the rule. And 2, because they're trying to emphasize to players in the preseason here to try and change the
So
race.
do you think it's going to be different
Yeah,
in the regular season?
I do. I think you're going to see
You
less
actually
of these
do?
flags. Yeah, I do. It's not. I think you're going to see a lot less of these penalty flags in the regular season than you have in the preseason, because I don't feel like this is going to become a college targeting rule, which right now is what it feels like. Every big hit in college, there's a flag and they go to targeting.
No.
I don't feel like it's going to become
that's a much
that.
different rule. That's a helmet-on-helmet thing. That's different than what we are seeing now. Now,
No, targeting is just leading with the crown of your helmet. You don't have to hit the other player in the helmet. In college
no, it's
football,
not.
yes, it is.
No,
in
it's
college
not.
football,
They're
college
not going to
football,
call that. They're not going to call it the same
if
way.
you hit a guy in the shoulder pads and with the crown of your helmet and you launch, that's targeting and you're out.
Launching is different. Going
Right,
down,
that's what I'm saying.
Going down to hit somebody in the knees and incidentally hitting them with the crown of your helmet, that is not called.
Well,
in college.
okay, so
and that's what's being called now. If a guy goes with his head down, they were trying to prevent that.
Well, you bring up a good point though,
it's
but
even in the knees, like up toward the. Even if you put
but
your head down,
if
that's what they're calling.
If you go down as a defender and turn your head down, you're going to get a penalty. But as a running back, if you do the same thing, if you cut up field and as a guy's coming to tackle you, if you turn your head down to hit him, that's a flag.
So what are we
It
doing?
works same
What
way.
are we doing? Are we going to run into each other chest to chest?
is the
how
league, bro.
This is not how this game works. This is not how this game has been played. This is not the right way to play this game. And how are you going to teach people, especially college kids that are coming up and getting into the league, to play this way when the rules are different? It's just nobody knows what is what anymore. So when you go and make a hit, that's what a defensive player, since the time he's 16 years old playing in high school JV, that's what he does. He goes and he tries to make the big play. He tries to make the big hit. So now as these kids come up, they have to position their heads the right way. And moving at a speed that they are, it's not an easy thing to do.
I know. I want to
It's
disagree with
so-
you, but I can't. I want to disagree with you, but I can't. What I like about the rule is it's trying to legislate guys keeping their heads up and looking at what they're hitting. But some of these like last-minute hits, when just the helmet happens to turn down when a guy's finishing a tackle.
All right, so why
I
not?
agree with you.
Why
I
do
agree
you
with
not? Why do you not institute this rule at the high school level and then work its way up? What you need to do is institute this rule as far as the way and the form that you're supposed to tackle and the way that is legal to tackle. Start it at the high school level this year, and then in 3 years work it up to the college level. Because at that point, kids will get the feel for it. Kids will learn it, and now you're not throwing it into professional players that have been playing one way their entire life. And now they have to relearn how to tackle.
Well, I think
that's ridiculous.
I think you're talking about what everybody's been talking about for years, right? And it goes back to Pee Wee football. It goes back to being taught how to properly tackle. But at the same time,
But at the
same time,
is that happening? Is that happening?
Well, here's the thing, though. Look at what you said about guys trying to make the big hit, right? If you want to make a huge hit and you want to decleat somebody or get on jacked up, right? Remember jacked up like 10 years ago? Now that's like taboo. You can't show that. You got to lead with the helmet. You got to launch. Yeah, Bobby, you got something?
Well, I don't know. I might have missed it because it's noisy as shit in here. But I think money's got a lot to do with it. Kids aren't playing football that much anymore because of like.
No, it's a good point.
Like
well, mothers.
and shit,
It's
so
a good
like-
point because of
Sorry.
CTE. No, you're
But,
right
like,
because the
parents
concussion
aren't having
movie.
their kids play football
Right.
the same
Mothers
way.
are saying, I don't want my
So
son
it's
playing
always about
tackle
the
football.
money, and I feel like that's always what you have to think about.
So what if you actually put a plan in
a
place?
good point.
What if you actually put a plan in place to say, over this next 5 years, we're going to teach our kids to hit this way. Okay, you play flag for 2 years, and then you move up to hitting, and then
It's like
you
yeah.
teach a kid to play this way so that this is the rule.
Yes.
And then from the rest of their life, that's what they know as the rule. Now we're looking at actual pro players that are flying around
That's
the
different.
field like
Yeah, I don't
missiles,
like that.
right? And we're going to tell them to play the game differently. It's impossible.
You can't. No,
it's
yeah.
literally
No, you
impossible.
can't.
But
do that.
you can and they are. But you can and they are. I mean, the rule's in place. You can and they are, and they're doing it. They're not going to change the rule.
Yeah, they shouldn't change the rules.
They're not gonna
It's
change-
not fair
but
to
they
the
are.
players.
But
And
they-
these guys already know.
But they're not retracting this rule. This rule is in the league for the entirety of this season and moving forward. It's never going to go away. And so the question is, do you know that the Bears linebacker, their first round pick, almost didn't sign his contract because the Bears wanted to put a provision in to his contract that if he got suspended a game for this new rule, that they wouldn't be liable to pay like that game salary, like they could deduct that money from him. And he's like, well, that's ridiculous.
Oh, if
But
we're going to get
that's
into
where we're going
NFL
now.
contracts,
That's where
we
we're
need
going
to,
now.
We need to
Well,
come in back tomorrow
Yeah,
and get into
yeah.
NFL
I'm just saying.
contracts
I'm
if
just
that's
saying.
what we're going to do.
My point
Running
is,
with your head down, is that a foul too? Like, is that?
It's here's the rule. Here's the rule itself. This is as it's written. If you make contact with another player, either offense or defense, if you're a running back and you turn your head down as you make contact, you will get a penalty.
Okay.
It's as you make contact with another player, if the crown of your helmet comes in, it's a penalty. So if you doesn't matter where you hit, if the crown of your helmet hits,
Sometimes you
it's
can't
penalty.
help. Like even if it's like incidental, like there's gonna be a lot of penalties.
No, because they're moving so fast. You don't even
Yeah.
realize how fast they're moving.
Yeah.
The point of my argument is it's just done. It's implemented in a really stupid
Yes,
way,
it's dumb.
and the fact is they're not going to be able to do it.
No,
It's
I agree.
it's impossible.
And they should teach kids from a young age, like you said, absolutely. But that's different than the NFL.
That should have been going on for the last 30 years, right?
Yeah,
they
it
should have been
should have
teaching
been.
proper tackling techniques for the last
But
30
now,
years.
like the dad is like out there, dude. Like they suppressed that for a while. Like no one really knew how bad it was.
Yeah. No. Well, no. Now it's CTA. Yeah. Thanks, Bobby.
Bobby, thanks for your contribution to From the Hill at the Whitpain Tavern.
So let's talk about Hard Knocks and let's wrap it up.
Real
I want to
quick,
talk Hard Knocks.
we're gonna
Browns.
get into
Browns
Hard Knocks.
Browns Hard Knocks.
Does anybody here watch Hard Knocks?
Who's not watching Hard Knocks, right? Everybody loves Hard Knocks. The thing is, I feel like everybody's got a little bit of Hard Knock fever, right? Because you get to watch the Browns, and now everybody's like, yeah, Browns are gonna win. What are they gonna win? Like 2 games? That's an improvement.
The Browns
They
are
had 0 wins
the Browns
last
are a darling pick this year for a lot of pundits.
But their darling pick is what? To go like 6-10? Like they're not gonna win a division, right?
No, but I do actually think they're going to compete in the division. I maybe I'm falling into Hard Knocks fever, but I do.
You got that Hard Knocks.
I do
fever.
kind of, from what I saw with Baker in the first week to the second week, is a lot different.
I
He's
knew you
changed
were
up
gonna
his
say
thing
that.
a little
I
bit.
knew it. I
He's
knew
changed
it.
the thing. He's changed it up a little bit. They have some actual
you're
pieces
buying
now to
in.
work with. They have guys like Josh Gordon, who is supposed to get his stuff together here, who's honestly one of the most talented players in the league. He's a top. If he's healthy and he's not doing the things he's been doing, he's a top 5 receiver in the league, I think. And now that he's a quarterback and a guy with a head on his shoulders that can do it, I think that makes them a threat.
Baker-
He's got guys like Jarvis Landry who have
Jarvis Landry looked really good.
who's obviously an upgrade
Yeah,
from what they've had in the past. Now the thing is, who's going to be starting at running back? They have a couple guys in there. Carlos Hyde at this point. They have another guy in there that's a rookie that
Well, they
is
drafted
a
Chubb.
stub.
Yeah,
Nick,
they drafted Chubb.
a stud. Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb.
And I like him a lot. I think that he's a power guy. He's not going to be in there for 3 downs, but he's going to be a 2-down back. It's kind of actually fun to see them now, but they're generating buzz, and that's, I think, a good thing for a town like Cleveland, who has for the last 5 years just been a dumpster.
So I agree with some of what you said. The problem with Josh Gordon's always the mental side, right? If he can get right mentally,
But as
he's
talent-wise,
fine.
he's
Talent-wise,
one of the best in the
talent-wise,
league.
he might be the most talented player in the league. So Baker Mayfield grew a beard, and all of a sudden he got you in. He got you in. He got you that he's mature and that he.
You know,
I'm
not necessarily all in on him, but Tyrod Taylor's nothing to sneeze at either. I mean, he's a pretty good player, and he
He's
has
an
been
NFL
for a
starter.
couple different teams. So
Yeah. I like the Browns' talent. I still think their offensive line is
I don't know
really
why we're
bad.
talking
and
about
so
the Browns, but the fact that Hard Knocks
Yeah.
is on, people do get into
people
it.
they get Hard Knocks fever, and then they let dictate that.
it
that team
is
will be
really
good.
the-
It
it
happens
is-
every year.
It is the
Every year.
highlight of the preseason.
Remember when Jeff Fisher was on Hard Knocks with the Rams?
That was the
Everybody's
worst
like,
season
oh
ever.
man, the Rams are gonna win, and they went like 6-10. And
But
you're like, Jeff Fisher's the worst coach.
to be
ever.
honest with you, the Hard Knocks is the crowning point of the preseason. Nobody really is
The only
all
good
in on
thing
the
in
preseason.
preseason is Hard Knocks, right?
is that's really what I'm in the preseason for,
I
is to
agree.
watch Hard Knocks and who gets cut and who cries, and Corey Coleman wants to get traded, and you just look at him and you're like, oh, this is not a team guy. Apparently there's some things going on there where they didn't show the whole story that he's trying to get out in the media now. We'll see that in the next coming weeks. But that is really what I watch the preseason for, is to see the evolution of a team, especially a team like the Browns, who are quote unquote up and coming. That we really, I kind of would like to see them come up and meet the standards of that has been the Ravens and the Steelers, and I'm not going to say the Bengals because the Bengals are a mess,
Go
but
8-8 every year. You can be the
but
Bengals.
a good division. If they can compete in a good division, I think that's going to bode well for them
I'm
moving
just glad
forward.
to
And I
see
think
the
they're on the
Browns
right
get
track.
Something, right?
Like
Getting
the
Hard
Phillies.
Knocks is something. Getting
Yeah.
Hard Knocks is something, and it's
the
good
Phillies
for the
winning by a lot.
Browns. Now they're down 1-0. So last thing, and then we're going to close up. We're not going to talk a ton about it. However, we are having the inaugural From the Hill Fantasy Football League. And on the next From the Hill, we're going to talk about some of the stipulations of being in the league, including what's going to happen to you if you happen to finish in last place. And that's a teaser. That's a teaser for everybody. That's it. Nick, you got anything else? Buddy?
I don't. I really want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank the Whitpain Tavern for having us. Hopefully we can come back and bring in a few more folks, but I really appreciate you guys coming. It's been a really good time. We're continuing to work on the show. If there are things that you guys want to see on the show, please, you have our numbers, you have our emails, you have our Facebooks, you have everything. Let us know. We'll get to it. We want to work through these things and have kind of more fan interaction stuff. Having the third microphone was cool today. We want to keep doing things like that. So I just really love you guys, and thanks for coming out.
Well said, Nick. I want to mirror what you said. I think the third mic was a good addition, right? We're trying to get more fan interaction. We want to get people involved. Thanks everybody for coming out to hang out with us here at the Whitpain. Thanks for Whitpain. Don't forget, everybody here, take care of your bartenders. I want to remind everybody that's here that's got their heads in their smartphones, which is like everybody I'm looking at, that you can follow From the Hill on YouTube. You can search my name. You can search From the Hill in quotations, from _ the _
You have
hill.
to do the underscores.
The underscores
We're
are
working
key.
on it.
Okay, but you wouldn't have to if we got more of you guys click and subscribe. Then we'd be higher in the search rates, all right? So it doesn't cost you anything. Click it. We're also on the iTunes podcast application. Same thing applies. Click that subscribe button. It's free. That's it. Thanks,
and if you
everybody,
need
for the
some
support.
swag, come to Jack. He's got it.
I got what you need. I'll be here all night.
We've got wristbands. We've got stickers.
Nicky, are
we've
you
got
running back to the hook, bro?
I
you might
might
have
be
to run
heading
back
out
to the hook for
quick.
softball.
Got a couple softball
I'll
games
be
going
here.
on tonight.
I got hats. By the way, Miller's here with M24 gear. A couple people asked me for that too. He's got hats, so if you want M24 gear, talk to Dave. I got the From the Hill stuff. That's a wrap.
Other than that, thank you guys very much. We appreciate you. Whitpain Tavern, we love you. We'll be back, hopefully.
Wow.
Love you guys.
Peace.